Well, thank you for purchasing the tire gluing machine from Kyle Klingforth and myself. When you receive it in the package, it should look just like this. The arbor sits here in this nice little slot. Down here is your push button to turn the device on. So you press that and you'll see the motor will start spinning. If the batteries for some reason ever go bad, they're located underneath this cover. You take out these 6 screws and the 2 batteries are sitting here. This little door slides out. And the batteries will slide out, you put some more in, and you put it back together again. Let's take the arbor out. You'll notice there's a little notch on the arbor there, a little pin that sits in that little hole inside there to make sure that if anything was to grab or anything, this wouldn't spin on here. That kind of locks it into position. So we go ahead and throw the tire on there, make sure it's sitting down on the hex appropriately. Turn the device on, the tire will start spinning. The whole idea is for it to spin nice and slow. This is the only device out there that's really able to do this without gluing tires by hand. So it makes this job, that much easier. A couple of things you'll want to have on hand. I'll show how to use or why this little piece of cardboard's here. This is just part of a header card or business card to use, and I'll talk about that in a second. Then of course we have our CA. You want to use a medium CA. You don't want thin or thick. The thin will have a tendency to run too much, especially if you tilt the device like I'm going to show you here. Or when you're removing the tire, it might run onto the flat of the tire, and then you're going to have to sand it off in order to fix that. And then heavy is just too thick. The medium is perfect viscosity for having it go around the tire here. So, all right. So how we go about using this is you're going to decide on how far up on the curve you want the glue to go. And let me show you a tire here. That one has glue on it. So if we look at this a little bit closer, if it shows up in the video here, you'll see that this Gravity C tire has some lettering molded into the rubber. Well, it just so happens that the way most of us glue tires for the CRC carpet here in the United States is on average you're going to glue about 1 millimeter above that lettering. You might need to go a little more or quite a bit more if the grip is super high at your carpet track. I've seen, and I've done it myself, I've glued almost up onto the flat where you're like 2 millimeters above. If you're running on gray carpet and you just want to play it safe or you're overseas, just maybe going to the lettering might help, but it's all going to be a little bit of experimentation based on the type of tire that you're using at that track. Another way to check it and decide where you want some is to use a pair of calipers. I'll show you that here when I'm done. I'll measure it and we'll decide on a point of where you're going to glue the tire to. So let's go ahead and glue a tire. So again, I like to hold the tire gluer at kind of an angle so I can see the edge or the curve of the tire where it starts to go up onto the flat. You're basically going to start on the flat or the rim of the tire with your glue. You're going to see a little bubble come out and you'll start dragging around on the rim. You'll get a nice little stream going around it, and then you'll start to move out towards the edge of where you think you want the glue to be. I usually stop short of that typically, and that's where our little header card that I spoke about comes into play. So we take this little header card here and we use it kind of like a squeegee, like you'd be scraping water off of a floor, except I'm going to use it to push the glue around on the tire into the location where I want that glue to be. Okay, so there we have a nice bead of glue going around the tire. I'm happy with that. I would stop it, take my tire off. Now I can either spray the tire directly with Kicker. If I do that, it's going to be the glue is going to turn kind of white and bubbly. It'll look something a little bit like this one here, where it turns all white looking. If you want it to be nice and clear, just like you see it now, basically, what people are doing now is they're grabbing a coffee cup, or they'll bring one with them, a little dish, something like this plastic container here. This one's a little big, excessive in size. Doesn't need to be this big. I use a smaller one at the track myself. But I've seen people use anything that can cover the tire and not touch it, basically. So what you do is you just spray a little kicker into that can or that cup or bowl or whatever it is. Let it sit over the top of the tire for about 30 seconds to a minute. By the way, you want to make sure if you use a header card or something to wipe the glue off. I've had many times where I've grabbed it again and got glue all over my fingers. So we're letting the glue basically dry at this point, but it's going to dry nice and clear and smooth, just like if you've done a chassis or something before in the past. So, all right, I'll go ahead and remove that. You'll see now that that glue on that tire looks just like it was when it was wet. In fact, it still looks wet, but it's actually dry. Okay. Now I've basically glued up to the top of the letters. You can barely see it right there, but I'm right at the top of the letters. Okay. If I was to take my calipers and measure that, so going straight across on the spokes, put my calipers right kind of on the edge of the glue and then come back up on the edge of the glue here, you'll see I'm at about 58.5 millimeters of diameter glue on the tire. Okay, so that's basically what you'd tell yourself, or remember that, write it down on the setup sheet if that's what's working for you at a race. All right, and I usually try to measure it in a couple spots around the tire because it is you know, not an exact science to get it perfect, but I'm pretty close here, 58.54, somewhere in there. At IIC, we just got back from IIC 2016. People were gluing their tires to about 59.5 millimeters, 59, somewhere in that ballpark, to not have the car traction roll going around the track. In fact, I heard at the Halloween Classic at the gate this year, again 2016, that people were gluing up to 59.5 to 60 millimeters to stop their cars from traction rolling. It just kind of depends on the amount of traction at the track and your setup, but this is now becoming a definite setup function for rubber tire touring cars, and even 12 scales for that matter. All right. Well, there we go. I've shown you how to glue a tire using the tire gluing machine that you purchased from Kyle Klingforth and Brent Klingforth. Again, we want to thank you. If you have any questions, you can get a hold of us on Facebook at Brent Klingforth or Kyle Klingforth. Just send us some instant message, or you might have our email address as well. All right. Thank you very much.